one of the things that's starting to happen in the market is that there's this vast repricing of Tesla stock. And we try to avoid financial discussions or stock related discussions on the channel. We focus on the technology, but it's impossible to ignore that the stock has just been on a tear these last 3 months. So the last 3 months, it's up 102%. Today, it's up 5.5%. It's $460 a share, all-time highs. And what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to sit down and figure out what the hell's happening and how to think about the implications of what they're working on from a technology perspective. We always talk about FSD, the bot are going to be gigantic, huge deals for the company. Those that follow the company closely, I think, agree with that in spades. But one of the things I brought up to Hans, and this is what led us to record this conversation, is that one really has to wonder if the reason why the stock is doing what it's doing now is because of the repricing from the market based on Tesla's FSD chops that they're showing now with V13, and the market broadly waking up to Tesla's ability to execute on an AI. And then Hans was going down a different path, slightly different path. So I'll throw it back to you and kind of take it from there.
Yeah, the big question is obviously, is this just a bubble right now and a big momentum move and hype, and then we're going to hit a wall and come back down to earth? I think that one of the maybe underappreciated aspects around the stock and the story of the stock specifically is that as shortly ago as 3 months, there was this narrative out there that all of Elon Musk's political involvement, that he was out over his key, that it was wrong for him to even get involved in politics in the first place. It was especially wrong for him to support Donald Trump as the candidate, and that his brazen inability to stay in his lane as a tech CEO was going to have a massive negative impact on all of his companies. And once Trump was elected, obviously all of that kind of goes out the window, and you realize, okay, now he is, don't bet against Elon. That winning in politics is something that he can also do on top of being an incredible CEO that leads his companies towards solving some of the world's hardest technical problems, creating massive value for shareholders just through execution on technology. Now also, he's probably going to create massive value for shareholders, and shareholders in this context being anyone who lives in the United States, through his political activism and especially through the Department of Government Efficiency. And so it's like a multiple tailwind that, okay, I think it's just easy to collapse why Tesla is on such a tear down into one reason or two reasons. And I don't think it's one reason or two reasons. I think it's probably 5 things altogether. And it really does take all of them to get the type of momentum that we have now. I have no idea where this ends, but I don't disagree. I think the market is starting to realize Tesla's execution on AI. They're starting to realize Tesla's execution on FSD specifically. It's hard to ignore when the CEO of Google says that Tesla is the leader in full self-driving.
That was crazy.
Yeah, you have that, but like...
Sorry, let's give a little bit of context as to why that's crazy. They own Waymo. Waymo right now is giving driverless rides where they're collecting fares on driverless rides around the country. And he came out and said Tesla is the leader on the technology. Yeah.
And he said that the leading 2 companies are Tesla and Waymo, but they obviously have 2 different approaches. And I think that there are certain things that Waymo is doing today that Tesla wants to do eventually. But I think there are also some big things that Tesla's doing today that Waymo wishes that it was able to do today as well. And those 2 things are going to get closer together over time, not further apart, assuming that Waymo can survive long term. So yeah, like that is another boost to like validation on the technology, but a lot of, it's not just Sundar, like a lot of very visible voices in Silicon Valley have been singing the praises of full self-driving ever since we launched version 12. And I think with version 13, it's just upping the ante to that next level because all of these people understand how these LLMs are built and they understand the importance of data. They understand the importance of scale. They understand the importance of training compute. And it doesn't take a rocket scientist for these people that this is their entire job to realize that Tesla has all of those resources in spades, and literally no other company that's trying to solve this problem has what they have when it comes to the AI resources that it's going to take to solve full self-driving and fully autonomous robotaxi rides at scale. So that, I think, is growing in the marketplace at the same time then that you realize, okay, it's all green lights from here for Elon and what he wants to do. It's green lights from a regulatory standpoint. It's green lights from there's no more political risk. And not just there's no more, like it's inverted. It goes from being massive political risk that you're going to get kneecapped in your ambitions to now you have massive political tailwinds that they're going to help you in your ambitions. And so just lifting that uncertainty. That's what Wall Street hates the most is they hate uncertainty. And I think that the uncertainty around what Tesla's going to do now is gone. And we could definitely get very overly exuberant in the near term on Tesla's ability to convert all of this into revenues in 2025. But I think people are essentially, they're just going to price in the execution early, and then we'll have to see if we have a digestion after that. And then if there's any hiccups in execution, like those could create massive volatility to the downside. But if you have a long-term time horizon, it's just hard to imagine that Tesla 10 years from now is not going to be one of the biggest companies in the world by perhaps an order of magnitude.
It's that loony kooky vision that a lot of us Tesla investors have had for the longest time, which is if you really allow this story to play out over the long term and you remove any obstacles and you just literally let the company go to work and let them execute against their goals, they are so far beyond anything that we've ever seen before from a corporation, truly, for a really long time. The one parallel that I've drawn before with the massive sort of the potential valuation that this company can garner in the future. And again, I'm not saying this as any financial advice. It's just it's interesting to think about because there's a lot of parallels. Back in the 1400s or whatever decade it was, the Dutch East Indian Trading Company. For today's dollars, they were valued as somewhere around $10 trillion market cap valuation from back in the day. What did they do? A horrific thing in humanity's past, but they were really the only player that could transport goods and services. And when I say services, humans as well, like slavery, the slave trade. They were one of the biggest companies, the only one that was able to transport those things from place to place. And what enabled them to do that was having by far the best fleet of ships. And the way that they figured out how to move those ships from place to place, manufacture those ships from place to place, so on and so forth. And that was a completely and absolutely insanely valuable service and product that they had for the time. And the market valued them as such. They were I think they were the first public company, was the Dutch East Indian Trading Company. I'm pretty sure I think the first stock ever traded was of that company. Now, the parallel that I draw to Tesla in this case, thank goodness they're not trading. We're long past that in the Western world, at least, of moving slaves from place to place. But it is interesting that if we distill it down to the core of what that was back in the day, it was labor, right? They moved labor from place to place. Tesla's going to manufacture labor through the Tesla bot and in some respects, self-driving vehicles as well, because in today's day and age, the human is the person that's driving the car. Like we buy the car as a tool to go from point A to point B, but the human's the thing that enables that car to go from place to place. Once you replace it with self-driving technology, you remove the labor. And so you're manufacturing labor in a sense. It's just the labor is narrow. It's driving. It's not like a multi-case. You can't put a car at an assembly line, right? You can't take a car and put it in a McDonald's and serving burgers. Like you can't do that, but you can do that with a bot. You can do it with a bot. And so just to paint, if I take it back to the stock, I think what's very interesting to think about is even if you take a very conservative view, but let me reframe conservative. If you take a very realistic outcome for Tesla's fleet size by the year 2030, and you assume that they've solved for unsupervised self-driving, okay, already the numbers become like they start to make sense based on today's moves. And so the math that I've been working, this is very simple, very high level. But right now, Tesla has about 6.5 million cars in their fleet globally that have hardware 3 or newer. So hardware, for those that are not familiar, hardware 3 is basically the bare minimum computer that Tesla's gonna need to execute a self-driving car, unsupervised self-driving in their vehicles. Maybe they'll do a free upgrade, but hardware 3 could do it. It'll definitely do it with a free upgrade, and hardware 4 will definitely do it. And I think we have all the data in the world that shows that's going to be the case. So that's 6.5 million of those cars. Really, by the end of the year, they'll have about 6.5 million cars in the fleet that have the computer needed to navigate. If you assume a very realistic curve of their production, in 2025, they'll make about 2.3 million vehicles. In 2024, they're going to do about 1.8, 1.9. 2026, 3 million. 2027, 3.5 million. 2028, 4 million. 2029, 4.5 million. 2030, 5 million, right? If you just assume that by 2030, they'll be making 5 million cars per year, which is half the size of Toyota, with their ability to come out with a much cheaper, much easier to manufacture car in this compact car, cybercab, et cetera, there is about, if you take that math, there's going to be about 30 million cars driving around on planet Earth by 2030 that will be capable of unsupervised self-driving. And if you just take that number, right, and you say 30 million cars, and then you put some sort of value to the price of unsupervised self-driving, that's, let's say, like a monthly charge. For example, today, supervised self-driving, so FSD is $99 per month, right? But unsupervised self-driving is going to become significantly more valuable because you get your time back, right? So there's a premium to that product. It's not, you don't get in the car and drive. You get into the car and the car drives you, so you can do whatever else, right? There's a premium to that. And Tesla is really going to be it's going to be the only one that can do that at scale. If you assume that's $300 a month, just $300 a month, and Tesla makes just money on that $300 a month per car, right? Assume they're making zero from energy, assume they're making zero from manufacturing the cars and selling them, and they're strictly making $300 a month on those cars, right? A 30 million fleet size with $300 per month, and then you assume there's an 80% take rate by 2030. Because by that, like in my head, I'm like, if you're going to buy a Tesla, you're going to let it drive you around. I don't think people are going to buy Teslas to drive them by 2030. I think people are going to buy Teslas so that they don't have to drive. And in a world where we have 1.2 billion consumer vehicles, I'm going to assume 30 million of those are going to be the ones that people are going to own, that they're going to drive them around. I think that's a very reasonable, extremely reasonable thing to assume, right? And so the number I want to come up with here before I throw it to you, Hans, 30 million cars on the road, 80% tech rate for unsupervised self-driving at $300 per month, okay? Per year, that's $83 billion in profit. And if you put a 50 price earnings multiple on that, which in my head makes a lot of sense because by then the bot is starting to come to fruition. There's no profits being taken into account for that business. It's a recurring revenue stream. It's on a fleet size that's going to continue to grow year after year. At 50 PE on about 83 billion is a 420, which is such a stupid thing that happened here, literally by accident, market cap. $4.2 trillion market cap. And then the question becomes, how comfortable is the stock market in pulling that forward, right? There is a very realistic path for Tesla to get to a $4 to $5 trillion market cap, selling 5 million cars per year by 2030, and assuming 80% of the fleet is running self-driving unsupervised at $300 per month. And they literally make zero profit on energy. They make zero profit on the bot. They make zero profit on manufacturing the cars. They're break even everywhere else. I like the only thing that's keeping them from achieving that is solving for unsupervised self-driving. And the latest developments with version 12 of version 13, in my opinion, is making it extremely obvious that they're going to have unsupervised self-driving in the US, in China, in Europe, and other places as well. And their only limiting factor is going to be regulators allowing them to run. So, and I wonder how much of today is the market being like, okay, yeah, that makes sense. We should probably start to price it in. Plus everything else that you've said, obviously.
Yeah. I would agree with that. And some people will say that's crazy. No one's going to pay $300 a month. There's definitely 30 million people on planet Earth who can afford $300 a month who would absolutely pay for that. And if the current owners are not the ones who are willing to do that, guess what? The people who are willing to pay that $300 a month will come and pay them a price that they will be more than happy to part with their Tesla for. So yes, those vehicles will end up in the hands of the people that are willing and able to do that. The other thing is that model also assumes no robo-taxi fleet network. Like that's just personal use
100%.
of those Tesla vehicles. So that's another like conservative element of the assumptions that you're making there. Yeah, I think that's really on the low side of what I would expect the market cap of Tesla to be in.
And I think that's the thing too. It's just, this is all enabled by unsupervised self-driving. That was the biggest blockade, was that. And that was like the bear argument this whole time, is they're going to need more sensors. The regulators are going to stop. No one's going to want it. Whatever. Just go down the list. I'm like, okay. But if you really think about it, the only thing that's keeping them from doing it is just executing. And they're going to execute. It's obvious. They're going to execute. The execution is out of the human's hands now. The execution is in the hands of the compute, the inference, and the data. And then how that flywheel is going already.
Yeah, like when you boil it all the way down to first principles, this has been Elon's bet for a long time, that if you have the ability to see as good or better than a human, and you have a computer brain, that those two things will eventually have the ability to do this. And so those who are trying to say it's some other factor, oh, it needs more sensors, oh, it needs something, what they're all betting on actually is they're betting that AI brains are not going to be able to solve this problem. And that's a bet I'll take every day, all day. Computers are never going to be able to tell the difference between cats and dogs in a picture. Like, that's impossible. Oh, wait, they're way better at that than humans.
Yeah. And it's it feels like a silly thing to bet on.
Especially after it's been proven wrong. Like, cats and dogs is one thing. Chess, Go, StarCraft, the list goes on and on. Like, their AI, the growth of computer technology and artificial intelligence algorithms are independent, but going in the same direction. They're exponential curves. And so all you have to do is bet that these exponential curves are going to continue. And we've got decades of Moore's law that we can fall back on and say, it seems like computers are probably just going to continue to get better every year. Yeah. And the people who bet on Moore's law tend to win. The people who bet against Moore's law tend to lose. And that's even true of technology companies. Like when Intel finally thinks, oh no, Moore's law is coming to an end. Let's try and figure out other ways to grow our business that don't rely on Moore's law. Run that forward a few years, and all of a sudden Intel is an irrelevant company compared to someone like TSMC, who's, Moore's law is going to keep going. We're just going to keep doing the thing.
Now the question becomes, how much is Wall Street willing to bring those earnings forward? Like, how far into the future are they going to pull those forward? Because again, the other thing that we're not even talking about is the freaking bot. The bot. Like the bot might come earlier than Cybercab. Like, who knows? The development, again, the thing that we always talk about on this channel is the regulations around humanoid robots are far looser than regulations around self-driving cars, because self-driving cars are missiles that could kill somebody and their dog and their kids on a street somewhere in some random city or town. But a humanoid robot can be confined to a limited space at a corporation. And the value from that humanoid robot comes from being able to leverage one human to supervise the work of 5 or 10 through teleoperation. And you never have to feed the bots. You never have to worry about HR. You never have to worry about anything. And again, from a generalized perspective, what is the gatekeep for that technology to execute? It's artificial intelligence. And boy, did Tesla do a number on turning that entire thing around its head that you couldn't, like you said, that you couldn't use artificial intelligence for a generalized solution when it comes to not just self-driving, but humanoid robots. If the car can learn with an AI brain, the bot can learn with an AI brain. It's a different problem. It's going to be challenging, as my dog's choking right next to me. I don't know if you could hear that. He had allergies. But so what the hell does that mean? It's completely unbelievable. And like people that I've seen the comments, like people watch this channel and they'll lose their shit because they think we're somehow saying these things to pump the stock or to get people in trouble or whatever, or because we're being disingenuous and we're looking to dump on the market. It's just do the math, y'all. Just pay attention to what's happening and do the math. Don't even take our word for it. Just go and watch the V13 videos. Go and watch the humanoid robot progress. Go and watch every single AI expert and every single major voice that's invested in these technologies. Just watch the progress. Use the early versions of GPT and use O1 Pro. Just do the due diligence, y'all. Just do the due diligence. It's what it comes down to now is execution and regulation. And the regulation piece, what's insane, which again, this seemed like a bomb not even a year ago, that appears to be a tailwind now in a lot of respects. On top of the technology itself, in the case of Tesla, they have a proving ground that they're going to execute on this. Not just execute it at a very high level. They're going to execute on a very high level. So crazy.
I think it's just crazy that no matter how much Tesla does and executes on and accomplishes, that Elon Musk always is thinking about whatever the next thing is, like new Elon Musk call options on the Tesla story continue to appear no matter how deep into the mission we make it. Yeah. And so, the fact that the Optimus robot project is on the horizon at the same time that we're talking about finally bringing robotaxis potentially, or at least unsupervised full self-driving to fruition, keeps those of us who are looking at the 5 to 10 year time horizon locked in. Like I can't not be invested in Tesla when I think about the next 10 years, because it's not just what we're about to accomplish that we've been talking about for many years at this point, but it's even all of the things that are lined up behind that. And the fact that we need everything that we've done to this point to accomplish those, everything that we've done to make FSD unsupervised is going to be critical components of what it is that we're going to need in order to accomplish the Optimus robot project as well. All of our experience with building up a data flywheel, building up massive artificial intelligence specialty and expertise and execution track record, all of the compute, the data gathering, like every single piece of it is going to the manufacturing expertise for cars that will scale down to robots, actuator experience and excellence, sensors. The whole product is a logical extension of what's already been done and also aligns with the mission to really make, having a sustainable energy economy that runs on electricity power, all of labor becomes something that you can just power with a computer and solar panels.
That's what's going to happen. That's the crazy thing, is that's what's going to happen. It's going to happen. It's going to happen. So what? Yeah, it's insane. What's the most fun thing here? Let's wrap this sucker up. The most fun thing about this whole thing is that who we're going to get to talk about this stuff with on Friday. Who's coming on? Who we're going to talk to, Hans?
Somebody. I don't think the audience is going to be very excited. They definitely don't usually clamor or call us out in the comments and ask for this person to come on. So
I like it. You want to keep it successful. It's gonna be our Christmas present to y'all. with all these developments. And of course, this person,
someone who just
ultimately
happens to know, a lot about this topic specifically. And if you really know your history, it's someone who called for the Tesla's entry into the humanoid robot space before Optimus was ever even announced, specifically. And he said that artificial intelligence is ready, that the one thing that Tesla's going to have to do and they're going to have to lead on first is they're going to have to solve actuators, because there's no good off-the-shelf actuators for humanoid robots. So they're going to have to come up with their own. And when they do, that the age of humanoid robots is ready to be upon us.
So look for that in these coming days. Again, it will be our Christmas present to y'all. We are
probably drop
thankful.
Either Friday or Saturday.
Yeah, probably. I was actually debating the strategy. It's funny. We'll give a little bit of inside baseball to the audience here so you all know what we worked through. I do think it would be cool to do maybe 2 or 3 clips first, So, because I know one of the things that we get a lot of heat for on this channel, like, your videos are too long. God damn it. Your videos are too long. I don't have all the time in the world. I'm really sorry. So one of the ways and another thing I want to talk about too at some point is like clips. Like, we should probably get back into clips and put them on the channel, all that stuff. But we talk about this stuff all the time, y'all. It's just, there's a priority list of things that we have to work here. I do think 2 or 3 clips, maybe from the back half or the back 2/3 of the podcast, would be cool. Because I'm assuming that conversation is going to go at least a couple hours, if I were to guess, depending on everything we want to cover. And then we drop the full pod, maybe like Christmas Eve or Christmas Day. And we'll say, hey, and then we'll have content for that week, because I'm planning on taking it off. So I'm trying to be with my family and all that stuff. And the algorithm's going to love it. We'll figure that out. But again, people are probably like, you probably already know who it is. If you follow this channel closely and you follow the self-driving space closely, it's basically everyone. It's who everyone wants to hear from.
The number one, most requested guest on this topic.
Yes. Okay. Bye.